morning, Mark Buitenhek. You're Global Head of Transaction Services at ING. And you were on stage 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, talking about blockchain, of course. Tell me what is your interest in blockchain technology?
Well, as ING, we started, I think, over 3 years ago with discovering actually Bitcoin first, right? Bitcoin was at that moment one of the biggest hypes, and actually the executive board of ING said, "Where's Bitcoin going, and can you dive into this? Because you're the head of payments of our business, so dive into this." And that was 3 years ago, and then that my journey started. And actually, the start was really funny. We normally, when you get these kind of requests, you set up a committee, you assign a few people. But we decided to do this completely differently at that time. We decided to post a question on our internal Facebook. And within the hour, we got more than 100 people responding that were actually working for 2 or 3 years already on Bitcoins and on blockchain. And those were IT people.
Okay, and they did it as private persons, as a sort of hobby?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. They were already. So we were, as a business, I'm working on the business side as the global head of transaction services. But these guys, as private persons, but also experimenting amongst each other. They were working there for 2 to 3 years, and actually we had our first Bitcoin millionaire already on board, who left the company.
Okay, so that's really interesting. That's
Absolutely.
something that people do outside their daytime
Absolutely,
job.
yeah.
What was the first time you heard about Bitcoin? Because you said 3 years ago you get the assignment to work on it, but...
Yeah, well, the first, if you're working in payments and trade, etc., you read this stuff and then you think, well, it's going to go over. So, but I think that's 2009, somewhere 9 or 10. But the real hype started, of course, when markets were exploding, Bitcoin was everywhere, and seen as an alternative for banking. And by the way, I'm personally interested in technology and everything that has to do with it, especially our business is in the midst of technology. And then exploring blockchain and the possibilities that it has. Yeah, that's where things came together. So from Bitcoin to blockchain in a very technological driven world that is changing really fast. Yeah, you would be stupid not to look into that.
Okay. And as a person, when you, what was the moment you got convinced about the real possibilities, or... Yeah, maybe you aren't convinced. That's can also be the case, of course.
No. I think so. The first phase was a bit about we went up and down. Is this a Ponzi scheme? Is this black tulips, etc.? Okay. You also see these kind of things in the board, right? When our risk people need to be risk averse, and this was quite risky.
Yes.
But the potential, by talking to people, by visiting these kind of conferences, having our colleagues of banks looking at these kind of things, and our own people and our own IT staff saying, "Cool, this is cool stuff," and by seeing how fast you can program actually with it and how simple it is, yeah, that's I think when it all started to fit together. Also, and I want to be clear about that. Technology on its own is fantastic, but to make it sure it works across the industry, that's where the hard part comes.
Okay.
So I guess after half a year or so, I was convinced that especially blockchain would do it, not Bitcoin, because that was clear. That was a difficult area. Also, the regulator was very clear on that part. And now we've embarked, and by becoming a member of the R3 consortium in November last year, I think we demonstrated that we put our money where our mouth is.
Yes. Because the next question I wanted to ask you is about the R3 consortium. ING is one of the 30 or more than 30 leading global banks participating in this consortium.
Yeah.
Tell me what are you aiming at?
So the R3, well, actually 42. There are 42, and the largest banks are represented in there. And we had a few targets when we came there. First of all, make sure that we learn a lot from what the others are doing. So we wanted to be among the top 40. Learn first. If it's successful and you got the 40 largest banks in that consortium, that gives an enormous opportunity to scale. So that was the second reason to do it. And third, we saw that collaboration and standardization in the end is key.
Yes.
So if you want to have reach, if you want to have a standard where banks can, or more standards where banks can work with, you need to join a collaboration. By the way, we still keep on doing, let's say, individual experiments ourselves, what come up. But the R3 consortium, that is the way where we basically our umbrella of activities that we put in. And so far, so really good.
Okay. You're doing your own experiments, you say, as ING. Last year, ING was the host of the Bitcoin conference, so. And this year you are the virtual host, making the live stream possible. So thank you for that. But I remember that last year you were on stage, or you got into contact with a Dutch blockchain or Bitcoin startup. It's called Florin. Can you tell us what happened after that?
Well, we had an interesting meeting on stage. I asked one of the guys that is part of Florin whether or not he wants to work with ING or work at ING or work for ING. And it was clear that this is an entrepreneur, and he turned down my offer. After that, I had much contact with this guy. He came to my office, we had conversations, etc. And we're actually cooperating together right now. So from that moment, and it's fantastic, by the way. There's an 18-year-old guy standing on stage saying, I'd rather work for myself than for a big bank.
Yes.
If you would have done that 20 years ago, his mother would have said, "No way that you're gonna do that. You're gonna work for that bank." But it shows the new world that we're living in, and I find it amazing to work with somebody who's actually now 19 and has fresh ideas, fresh look. He does dare say anything what he thinks. And that's how it works today. So I'm really enjoying that part. Yeah.
Okay, many people think that those kind of startups are going to disrupt the traditional financial players, but the model you are describing is more about collaboration.
Yeah.
Can you describe why it's important to collaborate with those startups?
Yeah. By the way, as ING, we collaborate with, I think, over 50 fintechs already. We have a fintech ecosystem built. Our head of innovation, together with fintech labs, blockchain companies, regtech companies, but also companies, small startups that are really specialized in onboarding clients, taking friction out, etc. What we've learned is that the basics that we're working on, we're very good at risk, we're very good at compliance. Let's be clear. Payments we're really good at as a banking industry. But to speed things up, we need to enhance our offering with what these new guys are playing. They come with a fresh pair of eyes. They have a different view on certain things, while we were still working in the traditional way. So they complement us basically from all different angles, and that's why we've set up that fintech ecosystem, where you basically can post a question and say, hey guys, can you help me on that? And then they come up with different offers, and you can work with them. While 2 years ago, working with a small startup, or 3 years ago, of 2 or 3 people, our procurement department would say, no way. Where can we get their balance sheet? Can we get their P&L over the past 4 or 5 years?
They hadn't?
No, because they just started, and a company that with two persons that just started. Now this is all organized and it's streamlined, etc. And it works actually really good.
Okay. I looked at the last part of your presentation on stage, and then you were also mentioning that it's very important to work together with organizations outside the sector. Can you explain about it? What kind of organizations are you thinking of?
What we're trying to do is getting our corporates on board.
Yes.
A lot of people think banks are traditional, but sometimes corporates are even more traditional in this kind of thinking, often understaffed departments. So we're trying to get them on board as well. The same goes for regulators. We actually participated in a training session for a central bank to help them get them on board. Personally, I think if you look at healthcare, there must be a huge opportunity in getting that further streamlined. But the same goes for a lot of governmental tasks. And if we could all benefit that, for instance, the land registry, together with our mortgages and notaries, etc., if we could create something that would speed up the whole process and make it indeed easier for a customer to get a mortgage and to do that within a full week. And everything, I don't know, and not just the offer, but get everything done at the same time with a few clicks. If you see the amount of paperwork there, but that's what we're trying to do: engage some people from outside as well in this journey.
Okay. And what do you think the next year will become the most striking example of blockchain technology? I know you don't have a glass ball or something, but
I don't know. What for sure we're going to see something in the international payment space because there's so many parties
remittance, etc.
in remittances, but also in regular cross-border transactions. So there are too many players in that space, so there must be something. Otherwise, they will go bankrupt. So probably there you're going to see a few things. I know that SWIFT is working on moving forward in that space as well. So that is one of the areas I think. To be honest, trade is one of the most promising areas, but it's also one of the most complex areas to see. So I think that the majority of, let's say, the breakthroughs will be within a financial institution or between financial institutions.
Okay.
So, but let's see if I'm right next year.
Okay, next year. Well, thank you for coming here and thank you for your presentation on stage.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.